What is up? GoodMicWork back at you. Money in the Bank 2017 is in the books, and I'm up here with a very brief review. Told you guys I would be up to give you a results video, so here I am. I was also live tweeting throughout the whole show. This show was okay. I didn't love it, but I definitely didn't hate it. I think a lot of the talent worked hard enough to where you at least have to give this pay-per-view a little bit of credit. But it was somewhat controversial, and it was very heel-heavy as far as the victories go, and who came out on top of most of these matches. But overall, you know, the pay-per-view to me was just okay. I threw up a Twitter poll a couple of minutes ago, very, very early, just a couple of hundred votes on this thing so far, but most people are saying it was in between. I asked you guys if it was good or bad or a little bit of both. Most of you are saying get rid of the third option and just let us choose good or bad, which I understand, but sometimes, me personally, I don't totally hate or love a pay-per-view. So sometimes I really am in the middle, and this was a pretty good example of one of those shows. Now, I'm going to go right in order here as far as the matches go, because there's no reason to start with anything specific. Nothing earth-shattering happened on the show, but some interesting things happened on the show, that's for sure. And the opening match was the women's Money in the Bank ladder match. I had a feeling they would open with this. Now, the biggest story surrounding this match was the finish. Very controversial finish. The match was not bad. We were all a little bit worried how the girls were going to perform in a match like this, and they pretty much held their own, I think. The match didn't go too terribly long, so, you know, they weren't like overexposed in this or anything, but they did better than I maybe thought they would. I was a tiny bit nervous, so I thought as far as the women's performance in the match and how they handled the concept, they did fine. The problem was with the finish. Now, for me, I don't really have an issue with it, but of course we saw James Ellsworth, who is with Carmella, as we all know. He's all mixed up in this match and involved in it, and what winds up happening is Becky Lynch is on top of the ladder about to grab the briefcase, and Ellsworth comes in and tips the ladder over, knocking her off, and then he climbs up the ladder himself and grabs the briefcase and just drops it straight down into Carmella's arms. And a pretty sweet catch by Carmella, I will say. And it was interesting to me because we've never seen that shit before. And it's, how JBL put it, like, how can you break a rule that doesn't exist? You know what I mean? They don't really have any rules in these matches, so who's to say somebody else can't run up there and take off the briefcase and hand it to whoever they want? So it's a loophole there. They're going to address it on SmackDown. Daniel Bryan will finally be making his return to TV on Tuesday after like 2 months off after having his kid. And apparently he's pretty pissed off about the finish. He tweeted something out, so they may wind up doing a match. And I actually thought Carmella, it would be in her best interest to go ahead and cash that thing in before they can change it, before Daniel Bryan can order a new Money in the Bank match, or at least make Carmella have a match with the briefcase on the line. You can almost guarantee that something like that will wind up happening on Tuesday. But aside from the finish, I'm fine with Carmella holding it. I think heels are better as briefcase holders. I predicted and was hoping for Natalya. I was wrong. And Carmella was rumored. I heard a lot of people predicting Carmella. So, props to everybody that had her in mind. And she definitely was somebody I was thinking about, but my heart was going with Natty. So Carmella holding onto the briefcase, as much as I don't like the Carmella character, I don't know. I just don't like her. I think she's gorgeous and all of that, but her in-ring work to me is just so-so. I hate her theme music. And I don't know, just not a fan of her gimmick overall. But, she can definitely grow on me. And she might make for a pretty entertaining briefcase holder. And we would actually see that later on in the ladies' title match. But a lot of people were bitching about the finish, that it was lame or it was cheap or it tarnished the first ever women's Money in the Bank match. I didn't care at all. I know there's going to be differences of opinions on this, but my response to this on Twitter is that for everybody that's complaining about this finish, I would like to remind you that you are watching professional wrestling. What the hell do you expect? To me, I'm too old school for the Money in the Bank concept to be sacred to me. To me, this is still a very, very new and modern gimmick type of match that doesn't really need to worry about its legacy or anything like that. So the fact that they had a goofy finish in the very first one ever, that doesn't bother me. I'm not saying that it shouldn't bother other people. It definitely does. Some people were pissed about what I tweeted. You're wrong. That match was terrible. Well, I invite you to get out your dictionary or go into Google and type in the word opinion and read the definition, because that's what I was expressing. I was expressing my opinion. That particular finish and that particular match did not bother me. If it bothers you, fine. That's your prerogative. but don't attack me. You're wrong for not being pissed off. No, that's just my opinion. I have the right to think whatever the fuck I want, just like you do. To me, I thought it was pretty humorous, I guess, that people were debating this so hard. And, and when I tried to defend the finish, people got all uppity. I'm like, Jesus, what are we talking about here? Come on, it's a women's Money in the Bank match on SmackDown. At the end of the day, who fucking cares who wins this thing? So to me, it wasn't even that big of a deal. I thought it was a creative finish. It was unpredictable. What do we all complain about all the time? I complain about it. You guys complain about it. We complain about the predictability of matches, and we've seen a shit ton of Money in the Bank ladder matches over the years. Granted, this is the first ever women's match, but we have seen a ton of these matches, and there's only so many things you can do in the finishes of these things and to make them entertaining or to make them unpredictable or to make you say, wow, I didn't see that coming. And, with Ellsworth climbing up there, that creates a new loophole now. They might have to alter some of the rules in future years. Next year, they might say the only way you can win is for the actual competitor to take off the briefcase. They have to be the one to do it, nobody else. So maybe this is the final time that Ellsworth or anybody can get involved in a ladder match like this, and they might rectify it on SmackDown. This could just lead to something better. They could do a second one of these, or they could do something that adds even more surprise to this whole thing. But, WWE, maybe in their minds, they were thinking that they want to make the first ever women's Money in the Bank match memorable, and whether you agree with the finish or not, I think you have to agree that it was at least memorable, because if it pissed you off and you thought it was horseshit, you're not going to forget it, which means it's memorable. So in my personal opinion, I didn't have any issue at all with the finish. If you did, that's fine. I'm not pissed at you for that. I'm not going to try to change your mind. If you hated it, go right ahead and hate it and spew out all the shit you need to in the comments below and use the caps lock key if you must. I do not care. I don't know what the hell Shane was doing. I agree with everybody that said that didn't make sense. Normally on SmackDown, if you have a double count out, or, if there's outside interference in a match, what happens? The commissioner comes out there and makes an impromptu tag team match or restarts the match or says, nope, it's not going to end that way. So in that respect, I totally agree with the finish lacking a little bit of logic, because it definitely did. Shane McMahon should have came out to the stage there and say, nope, bullshit, absolutely not. James Ellsworth, you are not allowed to touch that briefcase. As a matter of fact, you're banned from ringside. Get your ass to the back and referees restart this match right now. That's what should have happened. Ellsworth gets the briefcase and hands it to Carmella, and she wins, and the referees don't know what the fuck to do, and that's the way it ends. That means that the heel Carmella won in a very heel way. So on that side of it, I'm okay with it. So I'm not saying disliking the finish to this match is necessarily wrong. I'm just saying it personally did not bother me. So get off my fucking back about it. Speaking of finishes to complain about, here's one. The New Day and the Usos had a hell of a match. It was a great tag team title match. I thoroughly enjoyed it. These two teams work well together. There was some amazing near falls in this and a lot of good spots, and it was entertaining. Even with Xavier Woods' involvement on the outside like usual with the fucking trumpet and all that, I thought the match was really entertaining and really good and very, very competitive. And I had predicted the Usos to retain the titles because I wasn't ready to see the New Day grab the belts just yet immediately upon entering the SmackDown roster. I didn't want to see them win right off the bat. I thought this is something they could drag out, so I wanted the Usos to leave Money in the Bank as champions, and they did, but man, was this cheap. Now, this is where finishes bother me. The women's match didn't bother me. This one did because of how good the match was, and for the Usos just to powder out like that and get intentionally counted out and leave through the crowd, I was like, oh man, after a great match like that, a hard-hitting match, a competitive match with lots of near falls, I wanted to see a finish. We saw Lana get her title match next against Naomi. We were all nervous that Lana could actually win this belt, and, even though that would generate a ton of heat, get a lot of people talking, I didn't know what to expect in the ring from Lana, and if she's no better than Eva Marie, I thought it would have been horseshit for her to go out there and beat someone like Naomi, who's worked so hard to get to where she's at and is a pretty damn good wrestler in her own right. And I just didn't think it would be very cool. Although I damn near changed my mind. I was almost rooting for Lana. You want to know why? Because of her ring gear. Holy shit, that looked awesome. She looked amazing. And guess what? Her wrestling wasn't horrible. She got in the ring and she worked and she wrestled, and it wasn't the worst thing we've ever seen. I'm so glad that Eva Marie is gone. Fuck her. I'd much prefer Lana. At least she can get in the ring, bump around, get hit and hit back, and wrestle a little bit in there. And she put up a good showing for herself. At the end of the day, luckily, she did not win. She tapped out to Naomi, and Naomi retained the title, but not before Carmella's music hit right in the middle of the match. I thought Carmella was going to come out and maybe insert herself into the match and make it a triple threat. threat because we're all suspecting that Daniel Bryan and Shane McMahon are going to do something to her to punish her for how she won the Money in the Bank. So it's probably in her best interest to cash it in right away. And I actually thought that she would, but it was just a tease. And that's why I prefer heels holding the briefcase, because they can do shit like that. So Naomi wins. Thank God she beats Lana. But Lana was pretty impressive and she wasn't horrible. And who knows, maybe this character and this gimmick can actually get over. And like I said, she looked amazing. The big surprise on this pay-per-view was the debut of Mike Bennett and Maria Kanellis, or should I say Maria Kanellis and Mike Kanellis. He has taken her name, as JBL said with the straightest face. I hate JBL, but the way he delivered that line, he took her name, had me laughing my ass off. So they've debuted the two of these as some lovebirds. There was rumors that they were in the St. Louis area. We've been hearing rumors about them joining the WWE for a couple of months now, so it's not like it was a huge shocker. We kind of had a feeling they might be coming in, and it's great to see Maria back. She was always one of my favorite divas as far as like sheer beauty goes. I mean, I fucking loved her and still do. She looks amazing. She is just absolutely gorgeous. And, those eyes. Wow. But anyway, her and Mike are out there, and it was kind of a bad debut. I didn't like it. I hope nobody shits on me for saying that, because I know the two of them are pretty well liked, on the indie scene and stuff, but I just didn't really like the whole thing. The music was weird. There was all these hearts in the aisle, and then they get together, and they just profess their love to each other, and I guess he's completely pussy-whipped by her, and if she wanted me to take her last name, I'd do it too, so I'm not blaming him. But the fans really weren't into it, because a lot of the fans might not know who they are. Some of them might remember Maria, but she's been gone for a while, and not too many people are familiar with Mike Bennett except for the real hardcore wrestling fans. I mean, hell, I'm barely familiar with him. Aside from seeing him a few times in Ring of Honor and stuff and seeing what they do there, I've seen very little of the two of them as it is, and I think that it affected the crowd, and they didn't quite understand it, and all they were doing is talking about how much they love each other and making out, and I don't know. I mean, I immediately thought of Miz and Maurice, because that's what they do. And it sucks that they're on separate brands, because that could be a good feud. So now we've got a Miz and Maurice basically on both brands. SmackDown is going to have a version of this as well, which why not? It works. And maybe next year at WrestleMania, we can get an interpromotional mixed tag. What if I'm calling that right now? WrestleMania, like 9-10 months away. Mike and Maria versus Miz and Maurice. Who knows? But hopefully whatever they do gets better, and I'm sure we'll see them again on Tuesday night. And I'd like to know what a lot of you thought of their debut, and if you thought that it sucked as bad as I did. Next up, we got the WWE title match. Randy Orton challenging Jinder Mahal. Of course, Money in the Bank was in St. Louis, and there was talk of not only Randy Orton's father being at ringside, but a whole lot of St. Louis legends as well. I mentioned that it would be really cool if they could get Harley Race there, but unfortunately he's in really bad shape, wasn't able to make it. But they did have Bob Orton Jr., of course. They had Ric Flair. They had Sergeant Slaughter. Baron Von Raschke, one of my all-time favorites from the AWA, along with Greg Gagne and Larry the Axe. Mr. Perfect's dad. So a lot of cool legends sitting there in the front row. They did get a little bit involved during the match. The Singh brothers started attacking Bob Orton, and Randy Orton went absolutely apeshit. Goes on the outside of the ring and beats the hell out of both of them, doing that weird suplex flip thing to both of them on the table, hitting them with some RKOs. Basically spends 5 minutes sticking his foot up both of their asses, only to get back in the ring and get nailed with Jinder's finisher and get pinned. So Jinder Mahal retains the title. That was a match I predicted correctly. I think at this point you got to keep the title on Jinder, and I don't know if the fans want to see Randy Orton win the belt for a 14th time. Jinder Mahal kept the title, and I'm actually okay with that finish, but I'm not a fan of his finishing move at all. And I think Randy Orton as a challenger in kayfabe should have been smarter, spending so much time on the outside of the ring, letting his emotions get the best of him. All he had to do was knock the two of them out with one punch. They were actually ejected, by the way. This whole thing started when the Singh brothers were ejected, I think, by the referee, because they had gotten involved a couple of times, putting Jinder's foot on the rope and shit, and they decided not to leave, and that's when they came back and got in Bob Orton's face, which triggered Randy Orton into that murderous rage where he completely fucked the two of them up. But the finish was kind of lackluster just because Jinder's move is just not, I don't know, it's just not an exciting move. I just don't like it. And as soon as he nailed Orton with it, he got the pin, and the heel wins, retains the title. So fine with Jinder winning, okay for the most part with the match, especially Randy Orton beating the hell out of the Singh brothers. Very cool to see the St. Louis legends there at ringside. I mark out for stuff like that. So all of that I liked. I just wish there could have been a little bit more at the end to set up Randy Orton getting pinned. That's my only real nitpick with this match. But congrats to Jinder. His title reign continues, and now I guess he's headed into SummerSlam, right? Or Battleground. I fucking forget. Battleground, I think. So most likely Jinder probably will go into SummerSlam as champion at this point. We had an impromptu tag team match, really stupid, not going to spend any time on it at all. I said on Twitter I would spend 6 seconds on it, and I've already exceeded that. So let me just say that Breezango defeated the Ascension. They did a spoof on Miami Vice backstage, really funny Breezango skit, and they had one of the big old cell phones that you would see in the 80s, and it said like product of Paul E on it. That was really cool. And then a couple of shadow figures appear on a tiny old school TV screen and saying, we're the ones that attacked you last week, and you meet us in the ring and you'll find out who we are. And I had immediately tweeted, I'm like, it's got to be the Ascension. I don't think this is going to be anything earth-shattering. I don't think this is going to be nearly as interesting as what's going on Raw with Enzo and Cass. This is probably just a time-filling buffer match or some shit like that to be thrown on the pay-per-view, and sure enough it was. It turned out to be the Ascension, and Breezango beat him, giving him a victory. Breezango's over. We'll probably get some more title shots in the future, so it was just a way to give them a victory on pay-per-view, I guess, and to give a babyface team a victory as well, because we had heels winning out the ass. Now we're on to the main event. Money in the Bank ladder match, one of the better Money in the Bank ladder matches I can remember. I thought this was great. So many good spots in this, hard-hitting. I mean, I was cringing at some of the bumps these guys were taking. Kevin Owens took some nasty ones. Sami Zayn took some nasty ones. AJ took some nasty ones. Great spots throughout this entire match. I particularly liked when AJ hung from the briefcase. Now, it's not uncommon. We've been seeing that forever with guys hanging from the apparatus during a ladder match. But AJ did one better. He tried to climb it, and I was thinking, oh, that would be great. What if he climbed up, just like the rope in gym class, climbed up maybe 2 feet, and he's able then to reach down and unhook the briefcase and fall to the ring with it? That would be a finish that would be awesome and very, very unique to the Money in the Bank ladder match. Another finish that we have never seen before, and I thought that would be cool if AJ won that way and Carmella won the way she did. You can definitely say that those two finishes to those two Money in the Bank matches would be pretty goddamn memorable, but AJ couldn't get the thing unhooked, and he ended up falling almost straight down. Didn't even break his fall. Normally when guys fall like that, they kind of land on their feet and roll. AJ just took a flat-ass bump on that, which had to be painful as hell, but I really like that. During all of the entrances, when Nakamura made his entrance, Baron Corbin attacked him before the match started, beat the shit out of him in the aisleway, hit him with one of the video cameras, and completely put him out of action. So the entire Money in the Bank match was mostly just 5-on-5. Nakamura was not in the match. He was taken to the back and was receiving medical attention. So near the end of the match, as Baron Corbin, I think, knocks off a couple of guys off the ladder, Nakamura's music hits. He comes down to the ring and starts brawling with Baron Corbin. They start fighting. Nakamura's back in this match. He eventually has a showdown with AJ Styles, which was really awesome and a really good tease, and I wouldn't be surprised at all if this is a SummerSlam match, and this is a way to begin that and set that up. Nakamura's obviously going to have some issues with Baron Corbin, probably for the next pay-per-view or something, but if he can somehow get in that ring with AJ one-on-one on a big pay-per-view, I would love that, and I would love it if they could figure out a way to make it happen at SummerSlam. That would be my ultimate dream there, but I really enjoyed the exchange between the two during the ladder match. And then finally, we see Baron Corbin actually be the one that climbs up and grabs the briefcase. It was so funny. I was picking like every single guy. I had picked Baron Corbin months ago. I remember prior to WrestleMania talking to you guys about Baron Corbin being a really good candidate to win the Money in the Bank. But then I started changing my mind a bunch of times. Then I started thinking about Kevin Owens. In my predictions video, I predicted Kevin Owens. During the match, I tweeted out that I'm changing my prediction to Sami Zayn because we had so many heels win and we had Jinder Mahal retaining the title and a heel won in the earlier Money in the Bank ladder match. I was like, well, shit, maybe they're going to go with a babyface. AJ Styles seems obvious. Nakamura seems obvious. But what about Sami Zayn? He's that Cinderella. He's that guy that's in the back of everybody's mind that nobody's thinking of, but he's over and the fans love him. And if he was to be the one to climb up there and grab that briefcase, I think the fans would mark the fuck out. I think he would get a standing ovation and the pay-per-view would get a resounding positive grade from all of us fans. I thought the crowd would have gone nuts and they would have sang his theme song for 30 minutes straight. And I thought he would also be a pretty entertaining guy to hold the briefcase for a babyface. You know, I prefer heels, but Sammy's goofy as shit. And I think as a babyface, he could actually make it entertaining. You know, the way he would probably never shut up about it. He'd walk around backstage showing it off. You know, he'd probably tease, cashing it in a couple of times. I just think he could be fun with it if they were going to go with a babyface. So I kind of picked him, and then I was like, well, shit, now maybe it's going to be AJ Styles. I could not figure it out. But at the end of the day, they went with Baron Corbin, and that's probably the right decision when you think about it. I mean, Baron Corbin is a guy that WWE wants to push. They have plans for. They want him to be a main eventer. I bet you he will wind up winning that title, which would be interesting interesting on SmackDown's side. I mean, in 1 year's time, if we get guys like Jinder Mahal, Bray Wyatt, Baron Corbin, all winning their first world titles on SmackDown, you know, that could be the type of reputation SmackDown wants to build. So now they've got another potential main eventer on their hands. Baron Corbin could cash this thing in whenever he wants, and I want them to take their time with it. Now, we got 2 briefcases now because the women are involved, so, you know, I don't know how long either one is going to last, but since we had Dean Ambrose cash in so quickly last year, it's essentially been like 2 years since we've had a briefcase holder in the WWE. So they might want to take their time with this, have Corbin cash it in at the absolute earliest at SummerSlam, but maybe even the pay-per-view after that, or stretch it out to Survivor Series like they did with Sheamus a couple of years ago. So I'm not ready to see this thing cashed in on Tuesday night on SmackDown or at the very next pay-per-view. They don't need to do that with me. I'm in no hurry to see it cashed in. So if they build to it and they create suspense and they tease us and they fool us a couple of times before they actually get to the cash-in and they are able to surprise us with the cash-in, that's what I want. And I want the same thing for the women. So, you know, overall, like I said, the pay-per-view had its moments. Definitely some controversial stuff. A couple of times it felt a little slow and even boring. I thought Mike and Maria kind of had a botched debut onto the main roster, so it wasn't perfect, but, you know, I give the pay-per-view, at least for the effort from the talent, I give it a decent grade. So I'll be interested to hear about what all of you guys have to say below. Many of you, by the way, before I sign off here, have been asking me my opinions on the upcoming fight between Conor McGregor and Floyd Mayweather. I can't believe this thing is happening, but let me just say, I hope they kill each other. I hate both of these guys. Mayweather, for obvious reasons, he's a dirtbag, and Conor McGregor, I just hate guys like him. You know, you just wonder what happens to people like that in their childhood, or what kind of upbringing they had that would make you be just an over-the-top douche. I know he's half character and he's half gimmick, and he'd be a great professional wrestler to have a guy like Conor, you know, with his attitude and with his charisma and his look in the WWE, I think could be very good and extremely entertaining. But just a guy to have that type of attitude, you just have to wonder what the fuck is wrong with them. So I really don't like either guy. I can't believe this is going to be a boxing match. I would have to pick Mayweather, I guess. McGregor's not a boxer. If this was in the UFC, I'd pick McGregor to fucking eat Mayweather alive. But this is boxing we're talking about. Not that McGregor doesn't have any boxing experience. It's just, you know, Floyd's Floyd. So this is going to be interesting to say the least. I can't wait to see who wins. And congrats to Mauro Ranallo. Did I hear that right? He's going to be calling this fucking thing. So there you go. He goes from being bullied by JBL to calling one of the biggest, or the biggest, money fight we might have ever seen in history. So that's pretty awesome for Mauro. So, you know, I'm interested in the fight just to see who wins, but I really don't care who wins. I'm not rooting for either one. I hate both guys. So I just wish they could kill each other and we could be done with it. But anyway, that's my opinion on the fight and on Money in the Bank. I've got to get out of here now, so I will catch you guys later this week with your joint Raw and SmackDown review. And I apologize that the Q&A is taking a little bit longer, but I am working on it. I'm getting there, and I'm going to have a new Q&A up to you very soon. And I've been toying with the idea of next time doing a live Q&A because I now have the equipment. I did recently purchase a really nice webcam, so I can do all that shit now. So maybe I will teach myself how to, and we can do some live videos sometime in the future. But you'll get the regular old Q&As that you normally get out of me here in the next week or two, so keep a lookout for that. And I'll catch you guys in a couple of days after SmackDown, and we see all of the fallout from Money in the Bank. So you guys take care of yourselves, and I'll talk to you real soon. Until then, peace.